Hi, I'm Adam Culp, and you're at Beachcast. Today, we're going to be talking about developing on Windows with WSL and a full LAMP stack. So stick around and we'll get right on that. I've been developing web applications for a very long time, and one of the most effective ways to be able to create something really fast is through having a local development environment. Well, recently, as some of you may know, I switched from using Linux as my primary desktop to using Windows. There were multiple reasons why I did that, but I'm not going to talk about those on this video. Let's just talk about the development environment. So with the development environment, one of the easiest ways to create a Linux-like development environment on Windows is using WSL2. Now, I've created some WSL videos previously, and I'll link to those up above, so check those out if you need to get a WSL environment up and running, or if you want to incorporate Docker into your WSL. This video is not going to cover that. I'm going to continue as if you've already watched those videos, or if you already have a WSL environment set up on your Windows desktop, laptop, server, or what have you. So, some of the prerequisites for this video is that you already have WSL2 installed or understand it, so that way you can follow along. From my desktop, I'm going to go ahead and launch the instance of Ubuntu that I want to work with for this video. Now, in this case, I'm going to select Ubuntu 18.04. Now, I do have two versions of Ubuntu installed on this system. I have 20.04, but for the sake of this video, I've installed a second instance of Ubuntu running 18.04, and that's the instance that I'm going to use. So we can see here that I am in that instance, and if I look at my present working directory, I'm in my home directory. Now, this is a fresh instance of Ubuntu. I've done nothing on this yet, but so I do need to get it set up. One of the first things that I want to do for setting up a development environment locally is installing Apache. I use Apache as my web server, so let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to type in sudo apt-get install, and I'm going to install Apache 2. And then it's going to prompt me for my sudo password, so I'm going to go ahead and enter that. It's asked if I'm sure I want to install it, and of course I am, so I'm going to type a Y for yes, and then let it go through and do the install. Okay, Apache has been installed, so now we're on to the next step. Now for this example, I'm going to go ahead and create an install of PHP. Now, PHP still runs a large portion of the internet, and I would imagine there's a lot of people creating development environments in PHP, so that's why I'm going to use it. So I'm going to install PHP the same way I did with Apache, sudo apt-get install PHP. And it's telling me what it's going to install, in this case PHP 7.2, because I'm using Ubuntu 18.04. I would get a newer version if I was on my installation of 20.04, but again, for this example, I'm going to use this. So I'm going to hit yes, and it'll start installing and get PHP installed for us and ready for use. Okay, so the install has finished. We now have Apache, we now have PHP, and I want to verify that, so I'm going to go ahead and type in php-i, which will bring up the information for PHP, and I did get the information for PHP. I could also do -v, and that would give me the version of PHP that's installed. So I know I have PHP installed, I know I have Apache installed. I can verify that as well if I open up my browser and go to localhost, and hit enter, and it brings up the default Apache page. So Apache is working, PHP is also installed. I haven't verified that PHP is working with Apache yet, but that's okay, we'll come to that. The next thing that I typically do in my development environments is I create a directory on the host machine, meaning my Windows machine, where that's where I'm actually going to develop the application. I don't develop the application inside Ubuntu. I develop it on my host machine, but then I link to it in the Ubuntu, so that way it uses it in conjunction with the web server. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I bring up my F drive. My F drive is a secondary drive on this system. I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call that folder projects. And so I'm going to create a projects folder, and that folder is where I'm going to house my projects. Right now there's nothing there, but it's where I'm going to house my projects. And what I want to do in the Ubuntu machine now is I want to link to that projects on the host machine. So I'm going to flip over to the Ubuntu command line, and looking at that, right now my present working directory is /home/Adam Culp. I want to create a symbolic link from this directory to that map drive. Now, if we experiment a little bit, if I list the contents of /mnt in this Ubuntu instance, I see that there is a C and there is an F and there's also a WSL. Because I created that file on my F drive, I now want to map through using that F drive. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a link. So I'm going to create in my current working directory of /home/Adam Culp, I'm going to create a link, and I want it to be symbolic, and I'm going to link to mnt/f/projects. And I want to link that to a projects in this directory. So I'm going to go ahead and type in projects in my current working directory. Typing that in now, it created that symbolic link. If I hit LL, we can see that I do in fact have this projects folder, and it is linked through to that F drive on the host machine. So now I can use that for all of my development. And that's the idea. Now over here, if I create, for instance, I create a new file. Let's create a new text document, and let's call this index.php. Okay, it's asking me if I'm sure I want to rename it, and I do. So I've created that index.php there. If I go over here now and I change directories into projects and list, we can see that I do have the index.php. So it has been created and it's mapped. I can see it here. If I edit this file, I can use vi, for instance, and edit index.php. And editing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some PHP, and I'll just type in echo hello world, just like that. And save that file. And so now I've got that index.php, but it's not really accessible right now. Although I've created the directory and I've got it there, and that's where I'm going to put all my projects, and I've got my index.php there. What I have not done yet is tell Apache where to find it. And of course you need Apache to be able to find your projects. So that's what I'm going to do next. To do this in a development environment such as this, I usually activate the extension for Apache called userdir. That's a user directory, short for user directory. So to activate that, I'm going to type in, let me clear here. I'm going to type in sudo a2nmod, that's Apache 2 enable mod, and type in userdir. And so now it's enabled userdir, however, it is not activated for Apache until I restart Apache. So typing sudo service, Apache 2 restart. So I'm going to restart the service Apache, and I've done that. So now userdir is active. However, it's not going to serve up that file that I created just yet. Right now, the userdir by default is looking for a subdirectory in my home directory called public HTML. I didn't create public HTML. Instead, I created projects because I'm going to house multiple projects there, not just one. If I was housing only one project in there, then I would go with the default of just having public HTML. I can show you that if I type in sudo vi. I'm going to use vi to edit the file. And I'm going to be looking at Etsy, Apache 2, mods available. And we want to look at userdir and the config file for userdir. So if we edit that here, we can see the base setups. By default, it's set up the userdir to be It's set up the userdir to be public HTML. And as I said, I don't want to use public HTML. Instead, I want it to be projects. So I'm going to go ahead and rename that to projects. Now down here in the directory, it also shows that it's using public HTML. So I'm going to edit that as well. Now you'll notice here that the directory, this is just this is a vanilla Apache. It's /home/ and the asterisk is the wildcard, meaning that it's expecting input into that. So the wildcard would be in my case Adam Culp. So we're going to put in projects here. For development environments, I'm going to go ahead and open this up a little bit. I'm going to put allow overrides all. The other thing that I want to do is this require statement. I need to give it permissions to allow the things to be served there. So I'm going to put require all granted, just like that. So now we've got require all granted, we've got allow all overrides, we've defined our directory, and we've also told userdir to use the projects as the directory. So I'm going to go ahead and save this now. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and restart Apache. I don't know that I need to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. So now if I come back here where I have localhost typed, if I put / and put Adam Culp / and in here, I don't need to put the projects directory because it should know that already. So if I just hit enter here, we can see that I do get my hello world as expected, because that's the index.php that I created there. So I am getting into the projects directory. Now we're ready to use that for our web development. Because I'm using PHP for my local development environment, I also use Composer a lot with PHP. If you're doing PHP applications, chances are you're using Composer as well. It is the dependency manager for PHP. Now I need to get that installed. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to getcomposer.org. Okay, so from the Composer page, I'm going to click on download. I want to download it, and it gives 4 lines here that we need to put into the command line. So that way it will download the Composer executable, if you will, and then we'll be ready to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, go over here to my Linux prompt, and paste that in. And now it is downloaded Composer in the current directory. And if I do a list, we can see I have a composer.far right here, and that is the latest version of Composer. However, I want to use Composer globally, especially in a development environment. I don't want to have to call it from within this directory all the time. I would rather just be able to call it by typing Composer at the command line. So now I want to relocate this. And in the Composer website, if I look here, it also gives additional instructions on how to install globally. So if I go to install globally, I can see it's telling me to move composer.far to user local bin composer. And in doing that, will then make it available globally because it's putting it in my path in my user local bin folder. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this command as it is here, go back to my terminal and paste it in here. And of course I can't do it because I need to put sudo first. It has to be a super user in order to put it in user local bin. So doing so, now it is taken that file. If I list the contents of the directory, we see the composer.far is not there anymore. It has moved it to user local bin /composer. At this point, if I type in composer from command line, now we're getting prompted by Composer of what command do you want to execute. Okay, so with Composer installed, there are 2 other packages that I want to pull down that make life a little bit easier. I'm going to type in sudo apt get install, and we're going to do php-dom, just like that. Hit enter. It's prompting me for password. There we go. Now it's installing that. And then we will have php-dom installed. Now, In addition to that, another thing that I want to install for Composer's sake is the unzip extension. Unzip doesn't come installed by default in Ubuntu, but as Composer is downloading the packages, it works a little bit faster if it's able to download the compressed version and then uncompress it once it's downloaded it. The alternative would be Composer would download the entire package, a file at a time, instead of an archive. And doing it as an archive is a much better approach, downloading things. So I'm also going to install that. So we're going to do sudo, let me clear here. We're going to do sudo apt-get install unzip. Now I'm ready to install a sample application. Now I am in my current working directory, my home directory, /AdamCulp/projects. And in this directory, right now all I have is the index.php. In PHP, one of the most popular frameworks today is the Laravel framework. So I'm going to go ahead and install Laravel as a sample application for the sake of this video. Now to do that, I'm going to use Composer. So I'm going to issue the command Composer, and I'm going to do create project. Create project. I'm going to tell it to prefer dist. And by passing that flag, it tells it to pull the one of the latest version of the files or of the archive, rather than downloading just the current master branch or main branch, as the case may be. So we're going to do Laravel/Laravel. And I'm going to have it put that in a directory in this location called sample site. Hit enter. Now it's going to reach out to the package manager Composer and pull down the latest packages I just asked for. Okay, so after a few minutes, it's completed the download and installation of Laravel locally. We can see here on the screen, it's already gone through and discovered any packages using Artisan, already done key generation as well. And so Artisan is also working as part of this install of Laravel. Now, if I come over to my browser, and from Adam Culp, if I type in the directory that I just created, which is sample site, and of course I want to go into the public directory of this location, we see that I do in fact have Laravel up and working right now. Now, one thing to note is when you're developing in this way, when you're using WSL2 as a Linux distribution and you're mapping to files on your host machine, you will discover some slowness. That's to be expected. Linux is working on a virtual machine within Windows, and WSL2 adds a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of nice things going on there, but they still haven't completely eliminated the slowness when you're using files from the host machine within the VM. It's not as slow as using VMs in other ways, though. I've experienced much more slowness using things like VirtualBox or VMware versus using WSL2. Now, WSL2 also, you can install it and use Hyper-V, but Hyper-V is not faster. Hyper-V is actually slower than using WSL version 2. So just know that going in. So as we do this, as I'm developing locally and I'm waiting for, I save changes and then I expect to execute it in case of the website here, there is going to be a second lag from the time that you refresh the browser till the page is rendering. Also notice here that I'm actually using that userdir extension in Apache to render this site in my browser. I'm using the address localhost / and in my home directory Adam Culp / sample site / public. You can also add a virtual host to Apache and make it just a simple domain name like mysite.com or .dev or whatever you want to do locally. You can also use PHP's built-in web server. I could execute PHP's built-in web server here and use that to serve the page on an alternative port. As I did the Laravel install, it did take a few minutes for it to install Laravel. Laravel has a lot of dependencies to be the full-fledged framework that it is, and through that, it does take a little while to install. Alternatively, if I was in a hurry to get Laravel installed, I could have just done it through the Windows terminal, whether it's PowerShell or the command prompt, and installed it that way if I had PHP and Composer installed on my Windows environment as well as in WSL. Some added benefits of being able to do this as well. Let's say, for instance, in my projects directory, if I change directory into the sample site directory, we can see that I have the Laravel site here. If I were to type in code and then just the dot, meaning the current working directory, this will execute from within the virtual machine. It will open up VS Code on my Windows machine using the current working directory in the VM. And that in turn opens up VS Code in the current working directory, and we can see here I have the Laravel app already opened up straight within that machine. So I've got the environment already working if I wanted to use VS Code. Alternatively, if I wanted to use something like PHP Storm, then I would open up PHP Storm, tell it where the current working directory is on the host machine, and create my development environment as normal with PHP Storm. It's kind of nice having the extra VS Code ease of being able to edit. If you wanted to do a sample application or some type of proof of concept and you needed to open it up quickly from within WSL, it is very easy to do code and then dot and have it open up the editor straight from there. Another thing I could do is from within WSL is I could type explorer.exe and do the dot for the current working directory. And that would open up Windows Explorer in the current working directory and give me access to the files using Windows Explorer as well. So just some added functionality that you get in the connectivity between WSL and Windows. Very handy. I hope you found this useful. If you liked this video, please give a like, and so other folks know. If you have any comments, if you do your development environment in a different way, please leave a comment down below. Let me know. Let me know how you do things a little bit differently with WSL, WSL2, and how you run your environments a little bit differently. If you found a way to make things run faster, that would be awesome. Leave that comment down there as well. And above all, take care. Be good to yourself and others. I look forward to see you in the next video. YouTube is going to show you some videos up here on the sides that you might be interested in watching next. And I look forward to talking with you next time.